Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Angie?
I'm actually so much more relaxed today than I was the other day.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, I just said awesome at the same time as you, and I thought my voice changed. That was weird. It was like that. I have Allstate. Okay. Anyway, all right. So, how was your cones?
Pretty sweet. Yeah.
Nice, nice, dude. Are you
Yeah, they're fun.
are you a trickster on them? Can you like do stuff?
Yeah, yeah. I
Ah.
I'm getting pretty good. I've been doing it quite a bit, watching a lot of videos on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, it's fun.
So like you're getting like serious like tricks, like the tricks that they do, the crazy leg type
Yeah.
tricks.
Rubber legs.
Rubber
Crazy
legs.
legs. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually heard from my friend Jackie in New York, and she's like, everybody's doing cones again. It's crazy. I was like, well, wow. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I wanted to apologize for being such a maniac. Last time I probably have some like 15 open-ended topics that started.
Is there some are you fiddling with like paper or something?
Just for a second there, I was.
Or like typing? There was just a lot of background noise there.
That was weird. I don't know. I did pick up a piece of paper, but can you hear me okay? Because I have this
Yeah.
like really weird like pilot headphone thing on my head.
Yeah, you sound pretty good.
Okay, not too loud.
No?
All right, I'm good. So,
Well, it was really interesting to hear you talk
yeah.
about about starting the magazine, and you're you're uh you're fun to listen to.
Well, thank you, Todd.
And you got some good fucking stories too.
I've got so many stories. It's ridiculous. I was thinking about that. I was like, oh my God, like I was just a babbling idiot, and you probably are all confused. There's a couple of things I should probably back up and sort of put into context. You
Like
know?
what? Yeah, feel
Well,
free.
like, I guess, I mean, a lot of people just don't even know, like, how everything began with, like, skating and stuff. And, um, like, I'm like third generation, second,
Yeah.
third-ish generation. And, yeah, like, first generation was, well, Rollerblade came out with these skates, Scott Olson, and, they picked it up in Minnesota, and there was like only a handful of people. I mean, they didn't know what to do with the company really at first. And there was a guy named Chris Morris who was like an extreme skier, or at least a skier, and just kind of an all-around crazy kind of guy. And he was one of the first people on them, just kind of going nuts, doing whatever, like, ooh, this new toy, what can I do? So he was just kind of going ape shit. And I mean, this is before my time, so I'm like, obviously, like, this is just from my perspective at that point. But they had gotten together. They like first thing they did, I think, was get some people on the boardwalk. But they got Jill Schultz, Charles Schultz's daughter from Peanuts fame, and she was an ice skater. She's always been an ice skater, and she was responsible for like the ice capade stuff with Charlie Brown and all that. So they had her, and they got I think I don't know if Chris Morris ever did the like boardwalk thing in Venice, but they got several people, to like just kind of cruise the boardwalk in the skates to like get them known and see what they people could do.
Yeah.
And one of the people that they actually got in there was Doug Boyce, and AJ. Everybody knows Action Jackson.
Yeah.
Um, but Doug Boyce was a surfer, skateboarder, artist from Long Beach, and they got him on them. And so, right away, he's my to me he's my predecessor. He's the godfather of skating because, um, outside of what anyone else was doing, Morris and AJ and what have you, he kind of had an immediate focus already from his surfing and skateboarding. He already had a focus on what he wanted to try to do on the skates, and naturally what he would attempt to do and how he would actually skate. So he's the one that gave me my first pair of skates, and he was the guy that as this new thing was sort of developing, he was the one who was beginning to do things that ended up being our industry, and you can pretty much credit him with all of that. He was pushing really hard to get skates made that were like more geared toward what we were doing and so forth. He got a little bit frustrated with that in the end. I think he broke his ankle I'm not sure, but like, just trying to skate ramps and stuff on them. You got to remember there was no street skating, obviously, other than kind of what the Wacky Modes is right now.
Yeah.
And so Doug was like uh, just the beginning of everything. And so that I considered that to be first generation. Second generation is when they started going, okay, we're getting some popularity here, and a kid named Chris Edwards got on the skates and started like, we all know what Chris Edwards did when he got on the skates. So he was pretty much him and a guy named Tim Gantz and Jimmy Trimble. They were sort of second to come along, and Pat was sort of in that mix. And then,
Pat
and yeah, Pat Parnell, they
Pat
started to
Parnell.
like do some stuff on the ramps and so forth. That's how Jess heard about it. It was, I think that there was something at a trade show. It may have been at ASR or something, but Jess had gotten wind of him. And, like I said, he was looking for a management type deal. So, that was just kind of forming right there. You had Chris Edwards doing demos on the ramps. And that was like the first time I saw that. I was just like blown away. I was like, holy cow. It was just amazing to see what Chris would do on a ramp back then, way
Yeah.
back then. Um, so, when we came into the picture, when I came into the picture and so forth, they had, Rollerblade by that time had kind of decided to put together this dance team to market the skates. And so that was kind of Jill Schultz's realm. And her partner in ice skating was always Chris Mitchell. So, like, those two were sort of the king and queen of the dance era. And so the Rollerblade at that time, what was going on, it was kind of splitting in two directions. So there was, us, me, Pat, Jess, Jimmy Trimble, Brian Konoski came around right about that time, JT, John Tyson, Tim Gantz, basically like 10 people. And we were doing something totally different, but
Yeah.
nobody wanted to pay attention to that. So that would be really like third generation. Yeah, and that kind of is the seed. That's where everything sort of started, was right there.
Yeah.
And everything, of course, was on ramps. And, we put together vert service. It ended up with like contracts with Rollerblade. And there was a lot of animosity back then about, well, there was with me. That's where it kind of led into the getting fired thing, is because the two different directions. And,
Yeah, it was like dance and the
mhm.
ramp skating. So when you say dance, like what did that look like? Just dancing on rollerblades?
Yeah, well, it was kind of half ice skating, half like just dancing, spinning around, partner stuff, lifts. Imagine ice skating pairs, or even just ice skating dancing. Kind of like they had brought this choreographer in from LA, this Andrea, and so they were putting together routines. It was like this many guys and this many girls, and just doing these routines. With the spandex and all that stuff.
Okay.
And yeah, they pushed really hard with myself and Chris Edwards especially.
Yeah.
They seemed to leave Pat alone a little more, and Jess and stuff, because Chris could dance, and I came from a background of like, I did lifts and everything with water skiing and with aerial acrobatics and all that stuff. So they really, and I'm a girl, so they like really pushed us to like try to make us part of that team.
Yeah.
And so we were constantly fighting that. And that was a big struggle. And it wasn't until we started to like really kind of gain a little bit of attention that was not it was not looked upon very kindly by Rollerblade. They didn't want the attention there, like I said, But
Right.
we started to get the attention, and with me traveling around occasionally with the dance team and so forth, and like immediately jumping off to find the nearest ramp I could and other skaters,
Yeah.
um, we started to like get a little bit of attention, and
So at that time, rollerblade wasn't really like pushing the ramp stuff,
they were anti pushing it.
right? They were
They
trying to push their dance thing.
Yeah, because that was more commercial, more friendly, more anybody can do it. It was more about pushing the speed skating, the the person going to work, the mode of transportation, the health, and all of those aspects. They didn't want this extreme thing because that pigeonholed them the same ways they didn't want anyone to call it rollerblading. But it's there, and Everyone refers to it as rollerblading. I was really happy that I actually finally grew the balls to just put that on the cover of the magazine because, they had to deal with lawsuit after lawsuit trying to keep people from using that word,
Yeah.
so they wouldn't become Kleenex. But I think it's inevitable. It's going to become that. So yeah, I was out there like kind of pushing things and bringing it back home to these guys and saying, there were some skaters out in Texas, there were some skaters here, and by the time we finally got a request to do a demo show somewhere, it was going to be an actual like get in the van and go, and we were all really excited about it, but they actually wouldn't let me go because they said, well, what would that look like if a girl showed up and got out of the van with all these guys? So I kind of got dicked out of the first tour, which
Wow.
kind of really sucked. But there were a lot of issues like that. I mean, it's way accepted now, but like there were a lot of issues that came along. But anyway, yeah. So we started to get a little bit of notoriety and a little bit of like requests. A lot of shops around the country were like, kids were getting on skates and doing what we were doing. So they were like, oh my gosh, we heard there's these guys out in California skating ramps and so forth. So can you bring them out, So they would call and they would request us. And Rollerblade, of course, would get the request and they would send the dance team. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of animosity there in the beginning with all of that. And eventually it got to a point where that just couldn't happen anymore. So they would have to send us. And and then suddenly the tide changed, and Rollerblades sort of put down the hammer and told the dance team, you have to learn to skate ramps. So it was like this prerequisite thing to like, if you're going to keep your job, you need to learn to skate ramps. So all the dance team was out learning to skate ramps and so forth. And that didn't really go too far. I mean, it went a little ways, but just things started to take off. And Morgan and Sean were working at the Rollerblade offices. That's the guys that put together Dare to Air, and so they put together this video. They were constantly filming, all of us, and especially Chris. And they put the video together. And by that time, we actually had contracts with Rollerblade, the ones I had mentioned, where we could do other things if we got permission. And they put together this tour in Japan. And at that time, we had already, Jess and I had done that trip or we had all done the Sketchy Bastard tour in Australia and come back, and the ideas of the magazine had been planted, and so I was kind of on that, and things were starting. And then came the Dare to Air tour, and we requested from Rollerblade, can we do this? And they didn't answer back, and we got a yes eventually, and then all of a sudden something changed up in corporate, and it was like, no, we don't want them to go. We want to send the dance team. On something else, not on the tour, because of course Morgan and Sean put the tour together, and it was going to be a ramp tour. It wasn't going to be that, but there was something else they wanted to book. It was some sort of strategic, like, this is what we want to introduce into Japan, and we don't want you guys to be there first. So it was something, I'm not privy to the meetings they had and so forth, but all I know is that suddenly we were forbidden from going.
Yeah.
But in my mind, this was the single most important pivotal event that had happened. I mean, we were doing a real tour in Japan, the very first, like, just vert skating roots tour that wasn't a corporate type thing or any type of association. It was grassroots. So for me, there just was no question, like, it was about promoting the industry. It was about what we were doing. So there was no question about us going. So we had a meeting. We got flown out to Minnesota, and we had a meeting with the I can't remember everyone's names anymore, but they sent me and Jess and Pat. Excuse me. Chris wasn't involved in this portion. He kind of was a superstar. He was like kind of off doing his own thing, and so it was pretty much just me, Jess, and Pat.
Yeah.
And so they flew the three of us out there, and I remember those guys telling me, they're like, "Don't speak for us, like, don't speak for us," because they knew I was a troublemaker and I was going to like cause a scene or whatever. And they didn't want to lose their jobs, which I could understand. But I don't know. I've always been a little bit more of a daredevil gypsy when it comes to that. I've never really had any value for money, so I didn't really care. And we got there, and they started saying, well, you can't do this tour. And I said, well, it's in our contract that if this period of time goes by without any response, that it's a given yes. And Deb started like, well, get the contracts and bring them out, and it was very combative. Like there was a very serious vibe in there, and it ended up being kind of a Deb pounding her fists on the table and yelling at me, "You are not in marketing," and screaming at me. And she got really angry because she had brought up the old contract, not the one that we had like had the meeting and redone and pulled out all the other things and that we had all signed. So when she realized she had the wrong contract, and when she realized that like they actually had no grounds to forbid us to go and they had no grounds to fire us for it, then when that was brought to her attention, that's when she started screaming at me and so forth. And yes, I ended up getting myself and Jess and Pat fired.
Wow.
But it was important. So okay, there it was. We were fired, so that was it, and we went off on Dare to Air. And by the time we actually got out on the tour, I had the first issue of the magazine done, and we took the first issue of the magazine there. It's funny because it has in it "No More Cones" because that's what they were doing over there at that time.
Yeah.
It was funny, and it was a great tour, and just to meet all those guys. I mean, we're talking Makio,
Yeah.
that's where the Makio comes from. Makio, Tetsuji, Take. It's funny. I've actually just gotten back in touch with some of those guys, which is really cool. But yeah, got out there and did that tour, and then I got myself banned from all the Dare to Air tours. To this day, I still actually don't know why that transpired. When we got back off the tour, I think, I don't know, I know Pat gave Morgan a lot of shit on the tour, like Angie's got T-shirts and magazine, and because I don't know, Pat was just giving Morgan and those guys shit for not having like a Dare to Air shirt or something. I don't know, but Sean actually wasn't on the tour, just Morgan. And when we got back home, Sean came to me and he was like, said something, and he's like, just admit what you did. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And to this day, I've approached him so many times over this next several years because they banned me. And my teammates didn't stick up for me or anything. And it was like, okay, so the Dare to Air tours went on minus me. And every time I would approach Sean, I would be like, Sean, please, like, just tell me what it is that like you think that I did. And to this day, I still have. He's like, you know what you did. And to this day, it's like the biggest mystery of my life because I still don't know what the hell I did. I have like gone over it a million times in my mind, and the only thing I could ever come up with was I met Yuki out there, the Yasutoka's dad,
Yeah.
and I set up distribution for Daily Bread because we had the first issue out there, and so I set up distribution with him. And all I can imagine is somebody saw me talking to him, and I think they thought I was going to like do a tour on my own or something and ask them out, or I don't know what the hell. But anyway, bygones, bygones. But it still remains a mystery. So
Right.
after that, coming back, then we were all on fire, and things just, and actually street skating came around right before we went to Japan. Jess started putting little wheels from skateboards on his skates, and Chris Edwards was sort of on the same tip and doing this and that, and next thing you know, like people are grinding. So when we went to the tour in Japan, Tom Fry, who we had met previously in Australia, um, he we showed him what was going on in the grinding and so forth, and that's actually in the magazine, the first rails that he was doing. He just went nuts, man. I mean, he started like running around all over the park where we were and so forth, just looking for any contraption he could put together, and just grinding went absolutely apeshit after that, and street skating was born, and we all know where that's gone. So, and it's kind of funny because right about that time, I was so busy trying to make the magazine that I never had enough time to actually learn to street skate. I am the worst street skater you've ever seen. It's funny. I mean, I've done some rails. I've definitely like nutted myself a few times, even without nuts. But yeah, it sucks. It's like a big regret because now I don't have the strength yet really to like enjoy vert the way I would like to, and yet I'm like so crippled that crippled on street skating. But I have actually been skating a little bit, teaching my husband to skate too. But
Nice.
yeah, took him out It was pretty funny. It was like after he was like already bombing hills with me that I realized that I didn't even show him how to like buckle up his skates. He was fully skating the way I used to see like little kids skate, like no laces, no buckle. I'm like, oh my God, I could have broken your ankle, dude. Like, and he's just like, I strapped him up and he's all like, oh wow, it's like way easier. I'm like, yeah, it's better when
So
you're.
what does skating look like for you now?
Oh man, like I'm looking up at a pair of skates in my closet right now. It's back to whatever, like I put on my skates and just roll. And I'm so happy to roll and just to like not have to like think about marketing or what's going on in the industry or like I'm free of that mindset, because I was the pinnacle of it for so long. I always had to be
Yeah,
thinking about too many things in the industry and not just what got me on skates. Not the days of like going out to Marina Valley Skate Park for like 8 hours straight and just you and your skates and not no industry bullshit to like tarnish anything. So
right.
I'm really happy to be there.
Nice.
That's a really nice place to be.
Yeah. Do you use like aggressive skates or do you use rec skates?
I don't think I've ever put on a pair of rec skates.
Oh, really?
I don't even know how I wouldn't be able to skate in them. I don't think they would feel just alien.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, actually, um, I really love my Frankies. I still skate my Frankie Morales skates, and it's kind of
Rems or
no. Oh gosh, yeah, I'm way out of date, aren't I?
what are
Rollerblades,
rollerblades? Okay.
which is really funny that my last pair of skates as an industry person ended up being rollerblades because I had not skated a pair of rollerblades since the time we got fired.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a long, weird history with rollerblade because forever after that incident, of course, they didn't advertise in the magazine because, they wanted to like, I don't know, they just did not want to accept that. I mean, we had
Yeah.
Deb pounding her fist, you're not in marketing, and then here I am with the magazine. So it took a long time. And then finally, when we finally came together, it was because they sent an ad in that said something like putting an ad in this magazine is like being the skinny guy in gym class or something. I don't know. They said something, and it was like then it was like a handshake. It was like, oh, okay, all right, we're on the same page now. But still, I didn't skate their
Wow.
skates for the longest time, and
So
and I
how long did that take for them to come around and start advertising?
let's see. I started the magazine in '93, and I believe their first ad was in '98.
Wow.
I'm not sure if that was their first. I'm pretty sure. I mean, that's around the time when they sent that ad. So yeah, actually, yeah. And it's funny because I always had the single-minded vision of basically not destroying all the corporate companies, the big companies, but making sure that the industry leaders were, it was always my goal to see a skater start a skate company, a skater start a store, a skater start a wheel company, like a
Yeah.
clothing company. I wanted skater run and owned things. And so I knew that the others would have to die for that to happen. And I kind of knew that the others dying would sort of kill me too, but it's inevitable. It has to happen that way, you know? It's like with BMX or skateboarding or anything. It's like when Tonka stops making skateboards and then like Tomieto is making skateboards, that's when you become an industry.
Yeah.
There has to be a skater in every facet of the picture for it to be an industry
Yeah.
like that, such as it is. So, yeah, that had to happen.
Right. So last time we you were talking about like starting the magazine a little bit and we kind of left off in the beginning stages of the magazine. So tell me about how when things started to kind of pick up a little bit. Like,
Hmm. Well, when that first issue hit the streets, I mean, you think about how many things were coming together all at the same time. It's almost weird to like try to say them, but you figure I had that first magazine with me in Japan on the Dare to Air tour.
yeah,
But for that first magazine to happen, we'd already had the like dilemma here of the me and Pat, the box Daily Bread thing, and like those guys like wanting to like put me out of the picture before it got started. You know, by that time Chris Mitchell had like started street skating. You know, he was involved with Pat, so it's like uh, we're starting a magazine at the same time we've got this tour going on. By the time we get back, you know, it's like on the street, and it's on the street here because I literally took the magazine like straight off the press pretty much to Japan. So then we come back and it's here as well. And you know, it's just the phone calls are flying off, you know, because we've got like issues going out to Tim Daw and Tom Fry and all those guys in Australia, and Joe Burlow over in England, and Wally over in Hawaii, and we're sending it out everywhere, you know. Jess is selling it out of the back of the car, and we're just getting the word out on the street. And it's really funny because before we put that issue out, oh, and street skating is being born at the same time. I mean, there were just so many things happening in that year that it just was almost too much to take in.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think yep, and we had just had the big competition, the NIST competition, and so forth. Because, or was that right after? Now I'm getting all lost in myself here. But those were sort of, you know, coming to fruition. So there was just so much shit going on that it was insanity. So when I got back, trying to, I basically moved into this place called the ghetto, and we kind of like built it up a little bit. Like I said, it was like this like kind of meth jungle. There were just people everywhere, like in every cranny. They had like walls built in, like there was a door. I'm trying to remember how they did this. Is they cut something out, so there was like a secret room where they would like blow glass pipes and stuff. It was nuts. But me and my friend Paul, we had our little space up there, and Arlo would come down from LA, and Jess would come in, and like everybody would crash on the floor, and we'd get the issue out. You know, I basically was just around the clock. You know, I had I just had a little board set up next to my bed. I had about a 80 square foot little room that just was my bed and a bathtub and a piece of wood going across the wall and my computer. And that's where I spent 24/7, you know, just around the clock. Because at that time, and now this is really bizarre for some folks to wrap their head around, but the internet did not exist.
Yeah.
It seems like it's been there our whole lives, but the internet did not exist at that time.
No.
And I had the top of the line computer that I had gotten, and it had 800 whole megabytes of storage space.
Wow.
So nothing has changed in terms of how fat photos are, especially high resolution photos. So it took about 1688 meg SideQuests stacked on the desk for me to do the issue, and I would have to like, you know, I could only have like maybe 10 to 12 pages, if that, on the computer at any given time. So it was a lot of work to like put all that together. And you know, of course, now we're trying to like figure out how to ship the magazine, and figure out how to like do billing and accounting and all that stuff. So it's like my mind was just constant, you know, because there's number one, publishing is one of the hardest things there is to do as a business, and it takes the most people, and it has the most overhead. And at that time, it wasn't like desktop publishing is now, where it's an established thing, where there's books on how to desktop publish. There was nothing. It was like if you weren't in the Hearst family or Murdoch or something, you just did not know how to do this shit. And there was no one out there to tell you. So it was a struggle to figure it all out. But like, there's just so many cogs in the wheel to make a magazine, a print magazine, that if you have a staff of like less than 10 people, you're a maniac. So I was basically a maniac. I'd wake up, get on the computer, or get to work with Daily Bread, and that was my whole day. It turned out where, you know, people would bring me a coffee, somebody would bring me something to eat, and that just became my life. I lived inside of that. So, but things were happening, you know, so we were able to keep pushing that, and I just wanted to see bigger and better things happen for our industry. So, you know, there was so much to be accomplished. There was no
Yeah.
time to like kick back. For me, anyway, there was no time for
Yeah. So how long did it take because you eventually got a real office, right?
Well, right, let's see, I was in the ghetto from like 93 to maybe 95. It was the ghetto, and then another apart, whatever I was living, another apartment, and then another apartment, and then finally in Laguna at about, I think it was like maybe 76, probably like 95. No, yeah, 94 or 90, like the end of 94, 95. I got an office, yeah, a little office in Laguna Beach, and I got like my boyfriend at the time, Kyle, was helping out, and his friend, and that was it. That was pretty much it, you know.
The three of you.
Yeah, just kind of the three of us, and Jess, and Arlo. I mean, those guys were still carrying on being like pro skaters and so forth,
Yeah.
and doing their thing and living the life. So they were here and there and in and out and doing this and that went on for a couple years. And well, I actually got involved with the Warp Tour in '95. So, right not long after that, on the first Warp Tour, I met Johnny Donhelm, and we actually started dating. Yeah, that always was the case. Whoever my boyfriend was at the time ended up being a Daily Bread employee, and Johnny was like a total godsend though because he actually was a photographer and in the skateboarding industry and worked at Transworld, so he was able to
Oh wow.
bring a lot to the plate. When he started helping me out and like helping out at the magazine and so forth, like he was able to really help out with art direction and just that whole thing because you figure I'm just one person and I'm
Yeah.
trying to like put everything together, so having some actual qualified help was a godsend
Yeah.
and probably helped us to stay afloat. And then, of course, I moved everything to San Diego, which really upset those guys, but it was important that I needed to do that because in Laguna Beach, it's just very difficult. It's not like you can go down the street to a Staples or something. It's a beach community with not a lot of resources and so forth. So, as much as I loved it, San Diego was on the water, big scene, lots of skate parks, and a big city. So I had resources available to me that I didn't have there. So that's when I moved down here, and then the crew kind of formed with like Bo and Corey and the whole SD crew that's still here today.
Yeah. Is that where, Keith Wilson and
Yep, Keith Wilson, uh, who is like so dear to me. I love Keith and Bo and Corey. Those three
Corey
were
Miller
no
or
Corey
Corey
Casey.
Corey Casey? Yeah,
Corey
okay.
Casey. Yep,
Yeah.
Corey Casey, Keith, and Bo. And actually, they didn't come around until about a year and a half after I moved in '95 to San Diego, and I had an office by the train tracks. And it was just me, Johnny, his drummer from his band, Miles, um, and yeah, I can't remember who else was there, but not many. And then I moved into a full on like industrial park kind of spot, and was able to actually put a ramp in the office and uh, able to hire a couple more people. And it was basically people here in San Diego, friend of a friend that Johnny knew or someone, it's like there really were no skaters that could be hired at that time or anyone qualified. We couldn't afford anyone qualified, and there weren't any skaters that were passionate enough but knew anything. So we just kind of had flybys as far as employees went, which was kind of difficult. It was either that or a friend of a friend. So we had guys like Mark Garris doing art direction, Barry Kellman. These are all guys from bands. Barry Kellman, the drummer, was doing ad sales, and everybody was taking typing lessons in the office. And a girl named Jenny came to me from Petco and turned out to be the single most important person that is to be credited with a lot of Daily Bread being around. And her, when she left, facilitated the demise because she was my right hand, and it was whatever needed to be done. She came on first with Jethro, and then when I had nobody to do something else, then she took that on. And we had somebody to do something else. She ended up doing all the accounting, so she ended up being the person who was with me learning to do the financials and how to actually like, 'cause financials for a magazine are they're so crazy that they actually have conventions and seminars just for publishing accounting because it's that nuts. It's not like something that you can just sit down with a regular accounting program and figure out because it's you figure when it comes to accounting you have to you have to only put on your books what you actually have put in the bank. So like say when you sell a subscription for $12, you can only actually put that in your accounts as each subscription is shipped, which could be over 2 years. And
Mm.
with magazine and newsstand, you might make they might request from you 30,000 magazines, and then they don't pay you for 30,000 magazines. They pay you based on this little algorithm they've come up with on what they think you might sell. So like they'll pay you for like, you know, 2,000, and then 3 or 4 months later they'll pay you another 15% of something else. Just all these crazy numbers that can take up to like 365 days or more to get paid for just one issue, and it just trickles in. So trying to figure out at any given time what you have, what you're going to need, and it's a nightmare. It was an ongoing nightmare. I actually hired an accounting company to come in, and they came in and they were so baffled. They stayed for several weeks. I thought they were doing what needed to be done, and when they left, I realized all they had done is just chicken scratch everywhere and do our taxes. So I ended up taking them to court, but the judge didn't understand the accounting. So he was like, "Well, they did the accounting." I'm like, "No, they did our taxes. I still don't know what the hell." So it was a big, big, long journey to try to actually figure out the accounting and get that straight because I knew the day would come when it would be extremely vital that we knew where every dime was, where it was going, how it was, and how to plan. Because when you get a distribution like we did, and when you've got employees and you've got a whole industry depending on you, there's a lot at stake for the industry itself, and you have to be able to like prepare and be able to like go with the flow, especially when the big companies start dropping out and so forth. So it was really important, and it was a long journey. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm a little bit delirious. I've been painting all day, so I've got like fumes in my head. So if I start wandering off into some random delirium, just kind of pull me back.
Oh, it's so enjoyable.
Oh,
I don't even want to stop you. All this
well,
is fascinating. It's such a different world. Like you said, there was no internet, and I mean,
no, it's
I mean,
not.
the magazine business obviously has changed a
Yeah.
lot since those days, and rollerblading has changed, and
Oh,
the whole
so
world has changed
much.
so much. So fascinating.
So much. It was like something like I think when I started Daily Bread, it was the beginnings of a desktop publishing boom of people, just regular people being able to make magazines the same way now regular people can make a movie or make a music video, like it suddenly became accessible. So I think there was some statistic I read that something like 600,000 magazines started up and only like 60 6 years later, only like 60 were still around, and we were one of those because 93% or something ridiculous of all magazines go out of business in the first year.
Wow.
It's a really hard business.
Yeah.
So I was pretty proud of that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it is a lot of work, and there was something I was going to say about the internet not being around back then. Oh, um, yeah, there were so many things changing at that time, like also consolidation of magazines and newsstands. Like there was this corporatization happening in America overall, where like all mom and pop printers were getting bought up by big printers, and all little mom and pop newsstand type places were getting bought up by like big newsstand chains. It used to be like if you were a guy that had like your town newsstand, you decided what magazines came in and out. And if you wanted to be on the newsstand in, say, Tulsa, Oklahoma, you called Joe at Joe's newsstand and said, "Hey, we've got this magazine. We'd like to be on your newsstand." And you worked it out with him.
Yeah.
And all that changed at that same time, too, with desktop publishing, because suddenly there were so many magazines that the big guys were like, we're getting flooded out. There's all these magazine choices for people. There's all these crazy magazines on everything, and nobody can see us on the newsstand. They were used to dominating, the airports, the grocery checkout aisles, the like Barnes and Nobles, the every magazine stand, newsstand you went to had the same 20 titles.
Yeah.
And so you were going to get one of them. And then suddenly there were like 300 titles. So they started like, the wheels started turning to like consolidate, grab everything up, piece it out. They started a tiered newsstand system where it was like, you had to be tier one, you had to sell this many magazines to be in these, to be in airports, for instance. You had to sell this many magazines to be on the checkout aisle of a grocery store. You had to be tier two or above. It was bizarre. So we were struggling with that constantly, like trying to like just wheel and deal and make sure we got in there, got everywhere, for rollerbladers to be able to like grab a magazine anywhere.
Yeah.
So we were always fighting that. And then when the internet hit, like I knew when in 93 or 94 rather, I remember going to the Senate offices to set them up with this newfangled thing, because I've always been a geek. So I was computer admin for the industry as well. So I was like going around and setting up everybody's offices with email and internet. And I wanted to build a website in 1994. I set out what I wanted, and I didn't realize it was YouTube. And I was a little early. So it's like I didn't know what was involved in building something on the internet, a web page or something. By the time people started having web pages, I knew what I wanted, and I knew we needed it because I knew that things would change. But I just could not, for the life of me, ever find anyone to like rely on for that. I paid people, I like hired people, and it would just be a fiasco of them like sitting there and chat forums and stuff, and nothing would ever get done. I mean, I had so many grandiose ideas, and I knew at a certain point, at like around 2003, how long had I been trying to get the websites online? By that time, a long time, it was a severe frustration for me. But like by that time, the industry was changing so much to the point where, with the internet advertising being so cheap and print advertising being so expensive because of the overhead involved, there was a real push toward internet advertising. Advertisers started wanting cheap, like they just weren't willing to pay that anymore.
Yeah.
So I knew that the time was going to come, and you could get the information right away on the internet. So I knew the days of print were numbered. And so then it became really vital about I wanted to be able to transition Daily Bread to online eventually because I knew it would have to happen.
Yeah.
And just change up the whole way we did everything, because Daily Bread served a purpose. And if it didn't serve a purpose and it wasn't serving a purpose, then I had no purpose because I didn't do it to make a living. I didn't do it to like be a publisher. I had no desire to learn accounting and shipping and publishing. I'd much rather just be a skater and be out skating and traveling and so forth. So if Daily Bread didn't have a purpose, then it didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
It served a purpose before the internet because it was the only way we could get the information. But once the internet came out, whoa, big difference. So, I knew that if we didn't roll with the times and if we didn't change, then we wouldn't be able to survive. And so that became really vital for me. And again, it was never pulled off. So you can't imagine what I do now. Do you know what I do these days?
No, what do you do?
I'm a database web developer. I do programming.
Oh, nice.
Well, after 10 frustrating years of like not being able to it was the only thing at Daily Bread I couldn't do myself. I could shoot a photo. I can write. I could, did the publishing, I did the shipping, I did the art direction, and everything I could do. So if someone failed, I could pull it off.
Yeah.
But with the internet, there was no time for me to learn how to program and so forth. So if I couldn't rely on the person I'd hired, and there were very, very few people over the years at Daily Bread that could be relied upon or who actually had any idea or qualifications about what they were doing. If what the hell was I saying? Oh, well, that was just the one thing that I couldn't do. So, when it came to that, it just was a massive failure. No matter which direction I turned, I just could not get that to happen. So, yeah, with all that pent-up frustration, I taught myself. And I'm the biggest geek on earth now.
Wow.
I thought I was a big geek already because I did all the computer administration and so forth. But now I've really taken it to a whole nother level.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I need to get out from behind the computer. I really do. It's not going to happen though.
No, embrace it.
Yeah. So actually, that's pretty much. There was a perfect storm. We went up where the industry was thriving with everything on board. I think the pinnacle times were maybe 98 to maybe the end of 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002 started to look bleak. Things were starting to like the internet had come in, the internet was picking up, so forth. Things started to chill. We were getting bigger, and as I had predicted to rollerblade, there would come a time when all these recreational skaters would throw their skates to the back, and we would still be there. And that sure enough was happening. So their sales were declining in all those areas and so forth. And they weren't really in the ball game for the passion of it. They were in it to make money, and if they weren't making money, then they were going to can the skates. So it was right about all around the same time that the big companies started dropping out, not running ads anymore, not having a team, and that was right happening about a year after I like was really going fanatical about like the accounting has got to be straight. Tough times are coming. We've got to be able to like figure this out and blah blah. And by 2004, 2005, 4 or 5, pretty sure it was 5. I My lease was up at the office I was in. I was in this like enormous office, which I got a lot of shit for, downtown San Diego. What can I say? I'm the daughter of a dumpster diver, which makes me a dumpster diver, and I'm a haggler. I'm a barterer. I'll battle it out, and I managed to find great shit at really cheap prices, which just really freaks people out because they think I'm spending a lot of money and I'm not. So I had this like, how many square foot were we? Like 13, 15, 8,000 square feet. It was huge. The office down here in San Diego and downtown. I had a full ramp in the office, big ramp. We had so much space we didn't even know what to do with it. But I was paying such cheap rent that they wanted me the hell out of there. So when my lease was up, I was gone. They were like, "You are gone." And so I had to find another office, obviously way smaller, because you can only pull off a miracle like that a couple of times. And we were consolidating down. Things were changing. My goal at that time, I'd gone through like not having anyone to help and then being able to have people to help, but not qualified people. So it's like, having 21 employees and 5 of them are watching videos in the game room. And the other ones are like instant messaging. And I'm in my office too busy actually working to like manage everyone. So, yeah, I was a really shitty boss because number one, I hated firing people. I wouldn't fire people, so the bad seeds would just like grow and they like become an army of just shit.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of shit, and there was a lot of me like playing the victim because I actually felt like one and was, where it was always like me complaining about how crappy someone had behaved or this or that because it was my own fault. I like let this shit build up, like I
Yeah.
let people get away with stuff. I let Marcelo go off to New York and kept paying him for months. I signed him up on my now Marcelo's going to hate me for saying this, but like I put him on my cell phone contract, and like that's the kind of shit I did. I give everybody cell phones and like they're not paying their bills and nobody's like living up to what they're supposed to be doing, and so Daily Bread suffered for that, and that's my fault because if looking back, if I had been someone who was a business person and not just a skater, everyone was family to me.
Yeah.
But by that time, the perception of me had changed. I was Angie, the boss. I was no longer Angie the skater with my friends making a magazine.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to clue in to the fact that I was the big bad man, like even though I'm not a man, I was like that person that people left and talked shit about. And so I didn't like that place. I didn't like being in that place. I didn't like the drama. I didn't like people feeling like I had something that they needed or wanted, so they were going to like kiss up to me to get it and then put a knife in my back. It was like everyone at that, it came to a point where it felt like everyone was out to get something from Daily Bread and nobody was looking at what Daily Bread brought to the industry and what they could do to make Daily Bread better. It was just leechy, sucky things, just everything coming off and nobody putting in. So it was getting really tough right about then because Daily Bread was kind of the biggest game in town. It was like
Yeah.
that's what everybody wanted to be involved with or something. So whatever we had, somebody wanted to take.
Yeah.
So I just kept on, like I put the Warp Tour thing, that was big for me. I wanted to see our industry get on board with the Warp Tour, where it was a fresh, new thing that I actually was part creator in. An inline skater was part creator in it, but I could not pull our industry away from the X Games, away from the MTVs, away from the corporate, the commercial, everything, to actually say, hey, this is something grassroots that if we get involved on the ground floor, we own. It belongs to us. So,
Yeah.
the only people I could ever get involved were like Kryptonics would always like get involved. Roses was a godsend. They would always get involved with the things that they should be getting involved with, but they couldn't do it alone. So they were the only ones out there on the Warp Tour. And 2 years into it, Vans came into the picture, signed on, and it became a skateboarding tour. Soon after that, I quit because I was just like, screw this. Like I'm not going to be out here with this Sonia lady that was handling things for Vans, and things were pretty chaotic anyway. So it was like time for me to go, and I was really frustrated that our industry let that opportunity go.
Yeah.
But that was just another thing, like I was always pushing the industry to like do things it wasn't ready to do yet. Like ASR, getting us back into ASR and staking our place in the action sports retailer show, the trade show here. That was like pulling teeth, and then Shane Coburn picked up after myself and tried to carry that torch too, and like we tried to like get our industry there. And I negotiated deals with them to have like a row of just rollerblading and in a good spot in the floor, and just to have core companies there, looking after our image, looking after what we were associated with and everything. But just again, couldn't get people who weren't passionate about building the industry, who were just looking at their bottom line. We couldn't get those people to invest and to like take part the way that they should. So we looked little, we were little, and eventually that just kind of petered out as well. Um, but all these things, they needed to happen. I was always trying to push them ahead of their time, but you just can't do it. They just have to happen. The nature has to take its course.
Yeah.
So, I was going to tell you something about that, but now I can't remember. Whoa.
But Daily Bread at one point was really big. Like I grew up in a small town, and there was a few places that we could get Daily Bread in Kamloops, and we would
Mm-hmm.
travel around to really small towns, and we
Mm-hmm.
would find Daily Bread in the gas stations and things like that.
Oh yeah.
It
I
was it was really out there.
I kicked some ass, man.
Yeah, yeah, you really did.
That took bribery. Back then, like I said, with the consolidation of the news chains and so forth, to get a distributor, because all those little mom and pop newsstands got bought up. So to get to them, you had to get to the distributor. And to get to the distributor, they had to look at you as someone promising that could be a top tier thing. And it was a game like trying to get your music on the radio used to be. Like I don't remember what the word is they use for that, but it's a big game of like who you know, who you. So I actually had to put aside money to pay a guy whose only job it was to get me into the distributor. Like that's his only
Wow.
job. He was our newsstand consultant, and without him, they would not deal with us. So it's basically like bribery. You had to like bribe your way in. So we did. We got ourselves in there, and we figured out how to ship cheap. I did all the. I'm kind of anal when it comes to bookwork and paperwork and keeping things. So it took like 5 years or something to finally get approved for our periodical license and keeping tabs on all that the whole time. And then finally we were approved for it. And so it takes like 6 different licenses for your shipping, and you have to like count ad pages to editorial, and it determines your rate for, it's crazy complex, lame stuff that is no fun at all. But we got into the newsstands like that, and we were really out there. I mean, that was our job, that was our goal, get skating out.
Yeah.
And it was sad to me actually when things started to really die down, where advertising was just almost null. And when I had to say, look, we were going to have to go monthly, and we're going to have to send the pages out. That was tough because I didn't want to do that. But when you've got an accounting thing, when you've got
Yeah.
payroll every month to pay all the people who are like actually, my art guy, my editorial guy, photo, blah blah, all the aspects that go into it, all those wheels that make it turn. Needs to get paid monthly,
Yeah.
and your rent is due monthly, and all your bills are due monthly. So if you're trying to like match apples and apples for how much is coming in and how much is going out, if we barely have any advertising dollars, we can't cover a month and a half of salary. We have to take that month to month. So it was like a very strategic thing that Jenny and I had put together with the accounting and so forth. We had finally learned what we needed to know. And as of 2005, January 2005, we were supposed to implement this new accounting system that we had spent years working on. The budgets were all in place. I was taking the magazine monthly. We had negotiated a monthly print thing with our printer. Everything was in place. I had all the I's dotted and all the T's lined up to like survive the storm. And then just the shit hit the fan. First, Jenny, she'd always wanted to work for her dad, and her dad's secretary left and offered her the job, and that was just something she had always dreamed of doing. So I was losing Jenny. Um, and Everyone was angry with me for making the magazine thinner and monthly. No one could understand it, so I had my own employees going against me with the companies and so forth, and just sort of an upheaval over that because no one understood why that needed to be done. And no matter how much I tried to explain it, I mean, it had taken me 10 years to understand accounting and so forth. They weren't going to understand it in 10 minutes. And they really had no interest in understanding it. So, everything was in place, and then just literally the perfect storm. So the woman who came in um, to replace Jenny turned out to be a con artist, crackhead, crazy woman who constantly, like, she just undermined everything. She was telling everyone like lies that about me so that she would like not look like the maniac that she was. I didn't find out about any of this stuff until down the road, but just she did some serious damage. I found like
Oh.
after she'd been there for a little while, I started to clue into it when I found 6 months worth of mail shoved in different spots in her office, like just shoved in there, like hiding, not
Like
opened,
mailed to you?
mailed to the magazine.
To the magazine.
Yeah, just all the mail that had come in, just like kind of shoved in weird places. And I'm not joking when I
Whoa.
say meth, and she had this one long pinky nail and a purple streak in her hair, and like I just thought she was a cool old lady, but it turns out she really was like just some whacked out woman.
Oh
Um,
no.
yeah, and so this accounting, we hired her because she supposedly knew accounting and knew this program. And so I kept saying, okay, like, here's what we've put together. This is what we need to implement. And she kept saying that she was doing it. But then I would look in there and it was like Charles Manson. It was like all over the place. And so I kept telling the guys, we're going to have this budget and blah, blah, blah. And I'd go to have the meeting and then it wouldn't be done. So it was like, wah. And then our printer, which, when you're paying $30,000 to print an issue or $35,000 to print an issue, because
Is
we
that
like
is that how much it costs?
around 38, 35, $38,000 per issue.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and about 28,000 in payroll. So that's just payroll and print. That's nothing else. That's not
Yeah.
distribution, shipping, rent, the whole bit. So um yeah, what was I saying? Oh, when you're paying that much out to print, you really can't screw around. So I had actually set it up. We'd been with the same printer for years, and I had set it up as like, okay, we're going to be going monthly, so we're going to need to get billed every, you know, 45 every 60 days because we're going to be turning this out. So we had our terms negotiated, everything was set in stone. And then our rep, who had been our rep for like 10 years, left the company. We printed that first issue, and here's where the ball started really, the cheese just slid way off the cracker. Um, we went to print, printed that issue, it came back. Uh, they billed us immediately, and then we printed the next issue and they billed that. So now we had two issues, and they were showing them as owing right then. They weren't owing because our terms had changed, but our rep had left. So I'm like putting out this fire, and they're refusing to print the next issue until these are paid for. Well, we can't pay for these until the advertising dollars come in for the, it's not like we had a huge savings. We were like always, and throughout the history of Daily Bread, it was always like in and out. There was no savings. It was just in and out.
Yeah.
Everything that came in went out, back out to the industry. So, that was like one fire I'm trying to put out over here. At the same time, I find out that Rusty, my distribution guy, unbeknownst to me, we had always gotten billed. The contract I negotiated with our subscription house, the people who mail out our subscriptions and who have the list of all our subscribers and so forth, was to be we were supposed to be billed per issue. But when we started going monthly, or when we set out to go monthly, apparently Rusty had talked to them and set it up and approved us being billed monthly, not per issue. So, so when an issue was late, they billed us anyway, and that's $15,000. So now we've got the printer over here not printing because they've got our terms wrong, and it's such a huge company that they can't figure it out, and the reps keep leaving. They're doing something in-house. But we're on a deadline in the meantime, and wages are piling up. So that's not printing. I'm getting double billed for an issue that hasn't even been, like, no issue was released, and I got a bill for $15,000. And so I find out that that's happening, and then I find out that Deb never invoiced for the last issue, like the issue before that when she first came on. She never invoiced for an entire issues of advertising. So I'm trying to figure out why we can't pay the bills, and I'm finding out that, well, that's because no bills were sent out, no invoices were sent out, no calls were made. That's why I say Jenny was one of the most important people at Daily Bread, if not the most important person. Everyone out there in the industry that was in the industry, they knew Jenny because they'd get the call.
Yeah.
Your ads are due, we've got to go to print. And she made sure that shit happened like clockwork. She was the person you could rely on. She was in the office at 8 o'clock. That's not me. I'm like, I can't wake up before 10. I'm like work till 3, up, that person. So she was the other half. She really made that shit happen. And so Deb hadn't invoiced for I found, an entire issue. So here we were budgeted down to the dime. And just one of those things would be a lot to overcome. But it was like one after the other after another. And then, again, with the accounting program not being set up, so we couldn't actually see. It was like being blindfolded. And then disruption in the office. Deb's telling everyone that, like, that this and that is my fault. And I'm actually, at that point, I had sold a house. It's a really kind of a weird story, but I had a loft downtown here in San Diego, and they brought in the ballpark, and didn't know this existed, but they have this thing called eminent domain. And when they wanted to build the ballpark, they had to get everybody out and tear down the buildings. So they actually pay the difference in your rent for 4 years. So I told them, I negotiated with them, I'm like, don't do that. Just give me one check for 4 years difference in the rent and so forth. So I took that check that they gave me and I bought a house, or put it down on a house, and in an area that was cheap, but that I thought would like come up. And then it did come up. Ended up, selling the house, and actually had the first money I'd ever had in my life. Like, it was mine. I had like $100,000. It was mine, and it was the most money I'd ever seen in my life. I grew up super poor. I'm talking like ironed bread and potato chip sandwiches, if on a good day, like really poor. You know what I bought with my first paycheck that I ever earned as a 15-year-old working girl? I bought a fan, an oscillating fan. I'd wanted one for years. We're talking a $15 fan, dude. Like, That was like my lifelong dream to own a fan. So, that was a lot for me. And with Daily Bread, I never looked at that as something that was for me to make money. It was a project for the industry. So, this was really special to me. It was like, wow, like if my whole world fell apart or whatever, like I actually have something, that could rescue me or save me. I never had the parents to call for a helping hand, or if I got in trouble, if I got in trouble, I was homeless.
Yeah.
So that was just really cool. So that was put away, and here I was faced with all of these fires, and the only thing that was going to save us was if I took this and I used it for payroll and print, all of it.
All of it.
So, that was a big deal. That was weighing on me. And I like went to this meeting. Um, I believe it was at Razor's warehouse. And we were all around the table. And I remember saying to everyone there, Scott Walker was there, Kato, like all the industry owners and so forth, and Andy from Razor's. And I said to them, I'm like, Daily Bread serves an extremely important role and purpose in our industry. And we are in trouble. Like if you guys don't support the magazine and don't advertise, then we can't survive. And I remember, like it was yesterday, Scott Walker saying, well, if Daily Bread goes under, another magazine will just start up. And that was after like what, 12 years of like building this up. And I'm like, you don't understand what Daily Bread is, what it's become, how much work it took to get it there. This isn't some rag. Like you said, you would go to a little tiny town, you'd find Daily Bread.
Yeah.
We were doing our job for the industry in a
Yeah.
big way. And so, I felt like I was like casting pearl before swine, as my mom put it, because here I was trying to explain, and this is not an isolated incident, but here I was trying to explain, like how important it was and how difficult it was to replace that and what it did for the industry. I'm like, you're cutting your own nose to spite your face. You're looking at
Yeah.
your bottom line right now, but you're not looking at it a week from now, a month from now. You're not looking at what it takes to make an industry thrive and survive. And we have the most established thing we have as an industry is Daily Bread.
Yeah.
And you're just off the cuff, oh well, if it goes. So that was tough. I remember sitting out in the parking lot and I was actually talking to Chris Garrett, and that was really funny because Chris was always on my shit list of you have no idea. There were companies, I'll say it, FR, companies you probably knew and loved that never paid a dime for their advertising. And people knew, that I was passionate and that I wanted skater-owned companies to survive and that I wanted to help any way I could and that I would do whatever it took.
Yeah, and they
Whether it
kind of
was,
took advantage of that.
oh, hugely. I mean, to me, everyone was my family. We were all in it together.
Yeah.
And I had never imagined that anyone would do that, but they did to the tune of probably, I'd say at least $160,000. Like easily, easily. Daily Bread supported so many of the companies in the industry over the years, just because, they just never would pay their advertising. And without them, to me, it was like, okay, this isn't a business to me. So it's important for the industry that they be in the magazine.
Yeah.
It's important for the kids. It's important for the skaters. It's important for everyone that this industry exists. But I kind of created a little bit of a bubble of something that wasn't reality by just continuing to just bust ass and cover it all. Um, and like I said, I was trying to create a reality that didn't exist, and it was a little ahead of its time because it has to happen naturally. We're talking like a lot of companies were maybe like, 21-year-olds running a company
Yeah.
that don't, like our industry had not matured in terms of like there being business savvy skaters.
Yeah.
There were business savvy people, but actually the business savvy people weren't even all that savvy. But skaters just had not come of age as far as knowing how to start or run a company or anything, and we just weren't there yet. So, um, where was I? Lost myself again.
These companies that weren't paying you.
Oh, So like yeah, I was sitting out in the parking lot with Chris Garrett because I would get really mad because I would be like, Christmas Eve, I'm sitting there waiting on a deadline and I'm trying to get a hold of somebody to get their ad in and I'd finally reach them and they're at the bar having a good time. I'm like, we're sitting here or with the payment thing, I'd go out on a tour and I wouldn't be able to afford a hotel room for myself or employees of Daily Bread. We'd just would be crashing on somebody's floor, and we'd end up crashing on the floor of one of our advertisers who bought a penthouse suite but wasn't paying their bills. It was really fucking pissed me off so many times. I'd be like, what the hell, dude? Like that happened with Garrett one time because I ended up he was nice enough to let me humbly stay on his floor. Hasn't paid for an ad in like a year and a half. And
Yeah.
he's got his new camera and he's got this like, fancy watch and he's talking about this shopping spree just went on and I'm just thinking, dude, if you would just pay your ad, I could actually get a room for me and the guys, like we could
Wow.
yeah, I'd get really mad about stuff like that, but that happened a lot. I mean, that's gonna happen, like people are naive. Everybody wants to skate and like you didn't. There wasn't a whole lot of the struggle like there is now. You were dealing with people who got in and it was a good time, and a lot of them were like paid skaters, paid to be skaters, and they were used to a certain way of having things. They weren't going to
Yeah.
be like working 24/7 nose to the grindstone because times were tough. They were
Yeah.
going to take whatever they could at the
Bunch
time.
of
So,
spoiled brats.
yeah, they were spoiled brats back then. So anyway, I'm sitting out there in the parking lot talking to him, trying to go, like this is the position I'm in, like I need to make a decision, like am I going to take this only money that I've ever had that's personal money that's not anything to do with the industry or anything and and do this and he told me he's like just get out, don't do that. Like, well, but of course I did because that's that's just that's me. That's what's always been, like that's what that was my passion was to do that. And I just, I made a promise issue one that I would never walk away.
Yeah. So you invested all of that money into Daily
Yep,
Bread.
yep. I used it all to pay everybody. And it's really funny because that's one of the things Deb did. She actually told the guys that I never did that, which was which was kind of really shitty. I didn't find out about that till afterwards. So here we are, like mid 2005. Shit has really hit the fan. We are like struggling big time. I'm putting out fires left and right. I'm having to switch printers because we can't wait anymore for them to like figure shit out, and we need to get to print. And in the meantime, with Deb and her like bad mouthing around the office and so forth, like I've got Justin and Shooty and Peel at that time. They're all young and fairly naive, and they don't understand the complexities of everything. So they get into the mindset of like, oh well, we're not going to make our deadlines. And then Peel's like, well, I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to go to England, and I'm like, you don't understand. It's like when you're trying to drive and you've got the wheel and you've got the windshield wipers and you've got the gas pedal and you've got the gear shifter and you're all ready to go and you've got everything. And then the gears don't go in, so the brakes just go, well, if the gears aren't going to go in, then I'm not going to bother to brake. So it's like this machine, and I can't get everyone to understand. It's like putting fish in a barrel, or what do they call it? Snakes in a barrel. So it's like I finally get these fires put out, and then you guys are going on vacation. You're not going to make your deadline because you're saying we're not going to make print anyway. Come on, like we've got to all pull together anyway to make shit happen.
Yeah.
So then there was that, and of course them going on vacation, not getting to go to print. Payroll's adding up again. The time clock just keeps ticking to the point where by mid 2005, I was like, you know, it's drastic. I've had to cut newsstand, which sucked big time, because that was our goal, was to get newsstand out. I was actually having to turn down newsstand. We could not print that many magazines as were being demanded,
Yeah.
um, which is the complete antithesis of why we existed. So it was really crappy. So we're like having to cut magazines. I had to like sublease the building we were in and get somebody else in there. I had to go look for a house. I fired Deb. That took long enough. Um, I eventually got that out, and so I was like all at the same time still putting out those fires. trying to find a house to move back into that could actually have the office and I could have roommates. Um, Trying to figure out what kind of psychotic madness had been going on in our accounting system for the past year and get all that sorted out and deal with the dissension in the office because by that time we'd like had 2 late paychecks. We're talking 12 years. Daily Bread never paid a paycheck late. Our contributors, yes, because that we had issues with that. When times started getting tough. Those were the first guys to get hit. Um, but that was also due to the fact that we had like 4 in-house photographers, and yet all the photos in the magazine were being put in by contributors. So that was some management issues that I should have taken care of. But never a late paycheck. And we had supported so many people in the industry and so forth, and always pulled it off. And then here we were. Times were really hard, and all these fires or whatever. So paychecks were late, and that was really hard for me. To have paychecks be like a week late was super tough, very disappointing. It's kind of hard to swallow, and it was not taken well. It was kind of fuck you, Angie, for
Yeah.
that. And again, because now I'm the big boss, I'm not the skater trying to like continue on with the passion of doing this. But so that was really kind of crappy, and paychecks were a couple days or a week or so late. So let Deb go, and we're trying to get into this house, subleased the office out. By this time, I'm dating my now husband, and so Peel actually lets me know that he has taken another job. So I'm losing my art director, same time, which was really sucked because we had waited like 2 years of having crappy art direction. We had waited for him to come back and helped him get his green card and not our green card, yeah, his visa and so forth for U.S. citizenship and all that. And I don't blame him at all, but that was really tough. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, all I can keep. And Rusty had been actually going to school. I didn't even know. He had only been coming in like 4 hours a day for the past 2 years, unbeknownst to me, because he'd been going to school and surfing in the morning. So he was actually getting another job too. Um, and I was like, okay, well, that's cool, and I actually put him on unemployment, even though obviously he didn't qualify for unemployment, but I wanted to make sure he was taken care of. So I went ahead and did that, and I pared it down to just like me, Shooty, and Justin,
Yeah.
because Justin was handling my advertising and editorial, and it had taken a long ass time to have anybody that was even a skater involved other than photography. So it was really, like that was my team, and then I think it was, I don't know if Wes contacted me or someone else told me, but Wes wanted to come and join the party. And it's really ironic because Justin said to me, he's like, I don't trust that guy. You shouldn't hire him. I don't trust that guy. Because, it had been years before when Wes was a contributor to Daily Bread. And we wanted him, I wanted him to be our full-time, like main photographer. I love Wes's photography.
Yeah.
But he had bigger ambitions and wanted to go up to New York and be like a photographer in the big city and so forth. So he took that direction and turned down the job. And I guess that didn't pan out for him the way he wanted, but he like contacted me back and said, I want the job. And of course, by then we'd already hired, Shooty and of course Keith was already there and so forth. So it was like, we've already hired someone, but I really want you to like come work. I'll try, like I'm gonna try to like get you in here. And I guess like, he would like call me every single day, just getting more and more annoyed. And I'm like, dude, like trying as hard as I can, I can't, I'm not gonna just fire everyone. So he got really pissed off, and that's when he started Rejects magazine. And I think it's kind of obvious why it was called Rejects. I don't know if that was just a coincidence or whatever, but that kind of turned into a bit of a heated battle, only because again, I'm looking at the whole industry, and the industry does not have enough money to support 2 magazines. Magazines cost a shitload of money to
Yeah.
put out, and I'm like, okay, if there's more than one magazine, it's deteriorating the overall goal of building an industry.
Yeah.
because advertising dollars are split. We can't, and the magazine at that point is it is our front. It's what says who we are. It's what sells us. It's what helps the companies to like get products sold and the shops to be known and obviously anyone who knows like anyone who's aware of how that sort of thing works now would understand that and say, yeah, like if you're looking at the big picture, if your goal is to build an industry, then you want one magazine as big and badass as it can possibly be. You don't want two pamphlets.
Yeah.
So, that was always my thing, and everyone always took it personal. And I was like, it's not about, I want to be the big publisher and you got to go away. It's about one. It's got to be one magazine. And those guys heard me say it over and over and over again. One magazine, one magazine. The industry can only support one magazine. I beat it into everyone's head. So like, I guess Justin was like, like I don't trust him and blah blah blah. But I was like, what? No, screw it. Like bygones, bygones. Rejects gone, and it's all water under the bridge. And I love Wes, and so yeah, come on. So it was just going to be me, Wes, Justin, Shooty, and that was it. And I was in this house, and I found a house big enough, got the thing subleased. I actually set up shop in Gerardo's bedroom because I didn't have a place to live at the time. So he let me set up shop in his bedroom. I had some other personal issues that I won't go into and probably never will go into that were happening at the same time, but I was able to like just put my nose to the grindstone and like rebuild the accounting system to start January 1. I worked out what had happened with 2005. I figured everything out, and I was actually able to implement the accounting system we needed to know what the hell was going on. And I basically told those, and we met at the coffee shop a couple times, but there was like several months between when this place that we were going to move into would be ready. So Gerardo, thank God, was there for me. He helped me like pack up the whole office, all the computers, everything, get them into storage units, and he also helped me get them out. I think Justin was working with his friend on a video, and nobody was really doing much toward working for Daily Bread, but I still kept everybody on payroll even then. Like we
Yeah.
didn't even have an office, and I still had everybody on payroll. These guys anyway. But I remember getting an email from Justin because he was pissed off because Chris Peel hadn't gotten his last check, and I told him, I'm like, here's the way it works. Right now, we are in deep poop. We're in deep shit. Peel has a very good job he's gone to. He's well taken care of and so forth. In the overall big scheme of things, you guys are the most important people to get paid, and the bills and getting the magazine out, that's got to go first.
Yeah.
And when everything's back on track, then we take care of this. If Peel was homeless and couldn't afford to eat, different story. But that's not the case. I made sure everyone was taken care of. So, as hard as that was just a decision that had to be made, and it had to be that way. It's like there was no other options. So, again, more dissension and so forth. But by the time we got into the house and into the office here, I was right at the tail end of trying to like wrap up the accounting and so forth. And I guess I'm getting into the story of how Daily Bread ended right now. I unintentionally somehow ended up here. But if do you want me to carry on with this?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. Well, well, here we are in this house. I've got a couple roommates, and downstairs is this room that we can call the office, and everyone's in, and things are okay. It's weird, it's weird for me because, I've been doing the magazine for a long time, from starting in the bedroom and figuring out shipping on the floor and everything all the way up to like having employees in an office and being able to like have a video premiere for the industry and trade show and taking care of people, like really helping to make an industry. And it's very difficult to like to have to like move down notches, down and down, and not be able to like support as many people or not be able to like live up to people's expectations. It's tough. So I'm kind of in that mind frame, but I'm like, still got the bootstraps up, and I'm going to keep things going. So I'm right at the end of that accounting program and so forth. and we're due to have this issue with the printer. We've already got all the ads in, um, the magazine's done. A couple of things needed to be done, like not much at all, but we're ready to go to the printer. And I'm right at the end of the accounting thing, and I realized, I think it was Justin or Wes, one of them was like, well, just put us on part time. And I'm like, nah, man, I can't do that. Like I can't expect you to like survive, like only getting part-time hours, so forth. Um, so I just kind of dismissed that. But when I got down into the budgets and really was able to finally look at a projection of what would come in, because our advertising dollars were down to like 20 grand an issue at that time or something ridiculous, from 80.
Wow.
80 coming in, 35 going out for print to print again, 15 going out for subscriptions, 10 going out for shipping, the licenses, wages, rent, so it was all coming in, it was all going out, but that's what it took. So obviously when 80 went down to 20, that's when we lose the office, that's when I lose half the employees, that's when, all that stuff, the pages go down in the magazine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and we lose part of our distribution. So we're at about 20,000 right there.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing all the accounting and getting all that wrapped up and so forth. I remember going, I think it was Tower Bar or something, and Elliot coming up to me at some point earlier than this, when shit was really hitting the fan at the old office before we moved into this house. And he said something to me like, Angie's like, if you need help budgeting. And I thought to myself, really? Really? Like that's how incompetent everyone thinks I am, that I actually managed to like make a magazine and like run it successfully for like 12 years, and all of this is happening right now because I don't know how to budget. I was like, really? I mean, I felt like a little turd on the chair. Like, oh my God, like really, is that how everyone views me? Is that incompetent and stupid that because like I said, the accounting publishing is like super crazy gnarly. So I was like, this, and it's funny because it kind of hit our industry first, this recession that was on its way, and the death of print, which was on its way. It just kind of hit us first. It's ironic that I go to the airport now. Where was I? I had to go to San Francisco or something, and I haven't been in an airport newsstand in probably 10 years for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I looked in there and I was like, holy shit, every magazine, we're talking big magazines, the top five, the top tier magazines, they all look like Daily Bread in the pamphlet style. I mean, not
Thin.
hardly a one of them can even be perfect bound anymore, because you have to have a certain number of pages to be perfect bound. That's when you have the like square back.
Yeah.
You're not just stapled together.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like they are literally one page above what you have to like be perfect bound. They're so thin
Yeah.
that the binding is actually too fat for the pen. And I was like, wow, like I wonder if anyone who was fighting me on the magazine having to go down, I wonder if any of them have like gone and seen what's happened to all of these other magazines, and do they now know that it wasn't just because I was incompetent there near the end, that it was because this was the death of a publishing medium that
Yeah.
was happening, wide scale. I guess they're trying to sell Vanity Fair for the third time. Nobody will buy it. I mean, like it's print publishing just cannot be, it can't be supported anymore.
Yeah. Well, it
Just
won't. Yeah, definitely won't be the same as it used to be.
no, it
It'll
can't
be
be.
just pamphlets. It'll be well, even
The
that. I
magazines
mean,
that are
slowly
surviving
dying.
are, it's kind of a funny thing that the magazines that are surviving now and that are big are the ones that used to be little. The city magazines, like the magazine that tells you what's going on in your city, that tourists get or that you get to find out where to go to a bar or a club or so forth like that. Like those local, what's happening in your area,
Yeah.
those are like those are thriving. They're fatter than they've ever been.
Huh.
And that's kind of weird that that's kind of how it's gone. Everything's sort of imploding on itself with in terms of that. Like everything's changing the way that we like get all of our information. But anyway, so here we are. I'm at the office, and I'll remember it like it's burned into my back of my eyelids. I finished up with the accounting stuff and realized budgetarily that it was impossible for me to catch up, to get Peel pay his last paycheck, to get some of the bills that were owed. By that time I'd also realized that Deb had just gone absolutely nuts, and I had the IRS after me after like 12 years of perfect record, um, for payroll taxes and all kinds of stuff. So like, I mean, there were a lot of fires going on out there, and so it's like there was a lot to be dealt with. And I wrote it all down, the minimum payments that I could make. I'd call all the vendors and so forth to figure out like exactly whatever. I worked things out with the distributor, basically threatened to sue them because they were, they had continued to bill us per month as opposed to per issue. And so finally got all that worked out. Like the fires were subsiding. It was getting like, okay, I've got this under control. But here I've come to this realization that I cannot catch up. I'm going to keep being in this hole, and after that many years of working almost around the clock, it's tough to think of putting in more hours when you're already putting in so many that you just don't have a life. So, I was at my mental breaking point, I would say.
Yeah.
Really, really at a mental breaking point. And when I realized that I had to put those guys, that I could not go forward without putting them on part-time or something, like basically at that point, I won't get ahead of myself. At that point, we're all in this little room and I just start crying. I'm just losing it, all of a sudden, because I'm like, we can't go on like this.
Oh, yeah.
I've done everything that I can possibly do, and we can't go on like this. Now, to me, I'm breaking down because I've been publishing a magazine for 12, whatever, 13 years by that
Yeah.
point. And this is very emotional. There's other personal stuff going on, and it's a very emotional thing to think, and there's a lot of stress involved with being a publisher. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but when you're watching a movie or TV, whenever they show a publisher, they're always some manic, workaholic, lunatic of a person.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it does to you, because you're constantly on a deadline, and the deadline never goes away, and there's just a million things to be done to make that deadline. So it's lunacy. But I actually was just for the first time just going, you know, just kind of melting a little bit. And I had also just recently come to the realization that, like, it wasn't me, the skater, anymore with my skater friends. That really I was just this person that people would leave the office and talk shit about, and that you know, if I was homesick, I guess there was a point of a little bit before that where like I had been really ill, like 105-degree temperature. And I remember the only calls that came in were to see if paychecks were going to be in. Like no one came to see me, no one came to see if I was okay, etc. And I was like, this isn't my family. I don't actually have a family. I ignore my family to work. I'm always working.
Yeah.
And my friends had come over from Europe, and it was the first time that I had like actually just hung out in so long. And so I was also in that very fragile state of mind where I just realized that I just was at a breaking point of like I needed to work harder, but it's like it was impossible for me to work harder because I was already working so hard, and I was really at a point where it was like, whoa, I don't have a life, and I don't have any friends, and I don't have anything, no, nobody cares about me.
Yeah. Well,
Whatever.
you had put so much energy and so much into this thing that you learned was possibly just gonna die, or
Yeah,
you
I mean,
know,
it was
that
just
had to be extremely tough.
yeah, really emotional. It's been emotional since then. I've been through many different uh, mutations of going through weird shit that I just kind of put aside and kept working, put aside and kept working. But when this happened, and I said, we can't go on like this. And so forth, and I was crying. The response, for me, what was going on was personal. And it was about me not living up to expectations. It was about me not being able to like keep going with what I was doing. And it was just a breakdown. Um, it was not a news conference or a press conference. it wasn't a public statement. It was just a person who worked really hard, really breaking down for a second there, like, whoa, real, this is tough. I'm doing my best, but God damn it, I'm losing it for a minute. And I'll never forget that, like, Justin got pissed and those guys got up and they left.
He got pissed?
Yeah, they all got pissed and they all left.
Like pissed off at you?
Yeah, they were just kind of like shitty, get up, leave kind of vibe. I don't even know. I was like really having a hard time, so I was just like, oh, whatever, like, fuck, shit. And
Whoa.
yeah, because all they heard was we can't go on like this.
Yeah.
And I don't even think they heard we can't go on like this. I think they heard, I think in their minds, and God knows what they were doing for their lunch break or whatever, because I always let everyone do whatever, and so they could have been really stoned for all I know. But what they heard was I quit, which I don't ever say those words. Those words don't exist in my vocabulary at all. And I would think after all those years that I would deserve the respect of, like, so what did you mean by that? Or are you going to be okay? Or, like, let's talk about the story, something.
Yeah,
But
maybe a hug?
yeah, a hug would have been great. That would have been really great. But now you're going to make me cry. No. So yeah, so that's what they heard. And so I, like, moped around probably for, like, just feeling like I had let all those guys down, because what I meant by we can't go on like this is because I was looking at their payroll and what it would cost to pay them, and I couldn't. And that's what I meant, because when you go that many years, in my mind, I always said if I have to, it'll go back to just me on the floor making the magazine like I did in the beginning. And that was
Yeah.
always a promise that I thought that I would keep. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted my family around me. I thought they were family. I wanted to have, my skater crew around me, like, making the magazine, all for one, one for all. I just couldn't bear the idea of it being just me by myself again. And so that's what I meant by we can't go on like this. It meant we can't go on the way that we're going on. It didn't mean we're not going to go on. It was just very painful for me to realize that, like, this was like a real, the end of the road turning point for how we did something had to change.
Yeah.
So I thought, for the next few days or whatever, I was moping around and just depressed as hell, feeling like I'd let all those guys down, trying to, like, think of a solution that I could keep everybody paid and working and blah de blah, and then I was just like, nah, like, after 4 or 5 days of being really sad. Oh wait, I'm missing a part. I, like, called them all, like, the next day or something, or a couple days later after moping around. And I was like, figured out the budgets. I'm like, no, like, they brought it up. I'll just put them on. I can do this if I put them on part time. I just didn't want to do that. So I refigured out the budget and put together a whole little spreadsheet, one for each of those guys to look at. And I said, come in, we'll meet. I think I have a solution. And so they came in, and I had come up with this solution to where if I had them on part time for 6 months, it was just enough to get, to save enough payroll to be able to get back on track the way we needed to be, so we weren't in the red and, like, constantly putting out fires, but we were actually functioning again. And so I was like, I tried presenting it to them, and the whole time they were just had these scowls on their face, and Justin kept going, are we going to get paid? Because, by that time they were owed a check.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was always my goal to get back to the beginning, to just have a group of people, skaters, and share ownership of the magazine. And that's where I had been trying to go for a long time, was just to have partners instead of it being just me. I wanted partners, everyone with a vested interest, and, like a group publishing type thing where everyone had a role. But I'd been waiting a really long time for a qualified editor, a qualified photographer, a qualified ad person, like, to make a partnership. And so that's kind of where I was going. But at that point, nobody was interested, because they were like, holy crap, this is, like, hard, and there's no money and blah, blah. So whatever. I had basically told those guys, as of when we move into this new place, we're going to be getting paid on a per issue basis until further notice. But even still, it was just a matter of, like, Justin was just looking at me and like, when are we going to get our check? Are we going to get paid? And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying to, like, tell you the plan for like everything to be okay, and you just keep hammering me for if you're going to get a paycheck right now. Like it was really baffling to me at the time. I couldn't
Yeah.
figure it out. And he ended up just like I think they just like put down their papers and walked out. So then I was like really like, what the fuck? You know, like I was twisted around it because it was like the reason I was upset was because I cared about those guys and I cared about having my team and my family around me and so forth. And that just sort of like pulled the curtain back entirely. And I was like, what the fuck? You know, like, why am I moping around and sad and like so depressed and we can't go on like this and stuff, worried about not being able to like, you know, carry on having employees and to me, which are my family around me. Like, why am I so bummed out about this when this is the response? Like these guys don't care about keeping the magazine going. They just want to make sure they're going to get that paycheck.
Yeah.
This isn't about a family and what we're doing and all that and so forth. So, I mean, I don't know. I was just really taken back and really kind of freaked out. And Justin seemed to be like the voice of everyone, all three guys. So, um, they left, and I again, you know, a couple of days of just like sort of freaking out in my head, trying to put all the pieces together, trying to come to terms with where we were at and what was going on and where was I going to take this next and how was I going to pull this off. And like everything just seemed hopeless and impossible. You know, now I don't even have a staff at all.
Yeah.
And just like, what the hell? And then one day I was just like, I just, what I always do, I'll think about something and think about it until I've got an answer. And then suddenly it was like, well, what the hell, Angie? You know, like, what are you thinking? Okay, now you don't have any employees. Now you don't have any wages. Now you actually can make the magazine fat again. You can release it quarterly because you don't have to worry about making a monthly payroll. The internet is big now. There's tons of good skaters out there now. There's tons of skaters taking photos. There's good writers now. You know, things have changed. And I just started thinking to myself, and I started getting really excited. And I was like, wow, that's what it took. It took the breakdown, it took the meltdown to like transition over into this what needed to happen, what was the next logical step, which was just me working in my house because desktop publishing had gotten to that point with the internet and being able to like send files back and forth.
Yeah.
Like everything was actually had grown up enough. It wasn't as hard as it was when I first started. I didn't have to go back to that. There were enough contributors out there. There were ways to send files and pictures, and there was a different type of media, and I could actually spend time learning to get the website and do that myself and put the print magazine out with the best of the cream of the crop photos that come in. And anyway, I had an epiphany and I got really excited and I sat down with the budgets and without the payroll there, I was like, yes, oh my God, I can even pay contributors again really well because
Yeah.
now I can like really pay contributors who are sending in great photos. I'll be paying for each photo instead of paying the salary of a photographer who's not shooting any photos.
Yeah.
And all the photos that are run are being run by contributors, and they're not getting paid because the money to pay them is going to the photographers on, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So I got excited and I like planned it all out. And I was like, I'll put this issue to print, and with the advertising dollars for this issue, I'll be able to pay for print. I'll be able to pay everyone who's owed. I'll be able to pay the last checks, and I'll have just enough to get by to start building the next issue. And I'll make the announcement, you know, we're going to go quarterly. We're going to be 100 pages again. It's going to be fucking awesome. So
Yeah.
I go to the office to kind of get busy, you know, like I'm going to get the files, I'm going to set everything in motion, and I go to get the files for the issue that's supposed to be released, and I can't find them. They're like nowhere to be found, and I'm like, what the hell? Like I don't understand, you know, like I always trusted everyone to let them bring their own computers in and so forth and whatever, and so I start calling. I'm calling Justin. I'm calling Wes. I'm calling Shooty. You guys, where'd you leave the files? I can't find them. No one's calling me back. And I'm like, what the fuck? And finally, I start to get like, you know, things start clicking in my head, and I'm thinking, is this possible? Like, what's going on? Where are my files? And I start realizing that these guys have taken my files.
Whoa.
And so then I get threatening. I call, the only person who gives into the threat is Shooty because, I have always known, I mean, Shooty will always have a soft spot in my heart. I don't care what he does. I love the guy. And I knew that he would have just gone along. He was angry and he just kind of got pushed in with the whole thing. But and he told me, he's like, we took the files. And I was like, holy shit, like this is actually, I can't believe that this is happening. Like, after all these years and all this trust and me worrying about them, and then it started to click why, when I had the meeting um, about how to carry on and just going on part time, it's like everything started to click, and I'm like, okay, Justin doesn't want to lose his position in the industry. He doesn't want to lose that, and Wes
Yeah.
doesn't either. And how easy is that? Like, how easy is that? Justin is my advertising guy. He's my editor. And Wes, already put out another magazine without me. So I'm sure the two of them just went, well, fuck, if we just ditch Angie, we ditch all the responsibility, we ditch all the bills, we ditch everything, and we'll
Yeah.
just be partners. And so I started looking at it and I was like, oh my God, like this is the perfect rock and roll swindle. This is the best thing ever. I can't believe that they actually they're gonna pull this off, and this is amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm like thinking, okay, I got to get a lawyer. Of course, I have no money. My mom is like the poorest person on earth, and she had given me like a present years before $1,000 bond, which for her, that's like a shitload of money.
Yeah.
And I had even cashed that out to pay Justin and Wes and those guys. I mean, so I was down to like I had nothing, zero to go and get a lawyer with, and but I had to. It was my only thing. So I talked to this lawyer, and he was supposed to like represent me and do a restraining order. And I was like, yeah, but you're going to do a restraining order, but then what? Like I found out that they are actually at the printer with my files, and so the judge granted the restraining order, and they were ordered to give the files back. But again, just like years earlier with the judge who didn't know accounting and therefore didn't know I'd gotten totally screwed over, this judge didn't know publishing, and he didn't know what it meant to try to go to print in a small niche industry where apparently your entire industry is against you. And because not one person, and I'm not even joking, I'm not exaggerating, not one person called me to say, Angie, did you quit Daily Bread? Is Daily Bread gone? What's going on? Are you okay? Like, not one person. I I reached out to one person and one person only, and the response I got from that one person is the reason that I just completely walked away. Um, I actually called Gretchen, James and Gretchen. I saw that's actually the interview that I watched on there,
Yeah.
because I really considered them brethren, like, and we had just been out there to Alaska and stuff, and I just, I was trying to figure out what was going on, from the advertiser's perspective and from whatever. So I thought, this is someone I can call. And the cold shoulder I got was so ice cold, so freezing, and I could have been reading more into it because obviously I was in a pretty fragile state, but it was so cold. And when the fact that no one had called me and so forth, I just felt just this enormous knife digging its way through my heart, and I was like, no one gives a damn. No one, no,
Whoa.
everyone's happy with this, that this is happening. Obviously, no one cares, no one's called, and I'm without anyone's support. I'm helpless to stop this. I can't afford a lawyer for a damages case, even though it's pretty open and shut. When the law is, even if you hire someone, like say you asked me to go shoot a photo for you,
Yeah.
and I went and shot that photo. That photo is yours creatively. It's yours. Even if you didn't pay me, it's yours. So the way it works legally is like if those guys were upset that they didn't get that last check yet, they should have taken me to court for that last check. They don't have any right to steal 13 years of my life,
Yeah.
you know? So, but they thought that that was okay. And it would keep them in the industry, it would keep them in their positions. They get to like think of themselves as heroes, who've saved the day by coming up with another magazine, and apparently that's how they portrayed themselves to the advertisers. Was I don't actually know. The only person, like several years later, I ended up making amends with Kato because like I love Kato, always have, and I've always tried to like help and whatever. And I was more hurt by him not contacting me probably than anyone. And we finally got closure on that and came past that and so forth. And so he's the only person who's actually I've talked to, and Ezekwe. Right after all this happened, I talked to Ezekwe because I love Ezekwe, and Ezekwe was always there for me as well. But when I talked to Kato, he said that they said that I went crazy and that I quit the magazine, and that they were
That's
there
what Justin and Wes said.
apparently. Like I don't know. That's what Kato um, and the few people. Well, the only person. That's what Kato said. So like
Yeah.
apparently, yeah. Apparently they said that that I had gone crazy and quit the magazine and so forth. So nothing could be further than the truth because number one, I've always been crazy. I can't go crazy. You can't go crazy if you're already crazy, right?
This is true.
Yeah. And I never quit. I don't quit. Anyone who knows me knows I don't fucking quit. So yeah, that was kind of mind-boggling to say the least. But yeah, there I was. I went to court and got those files back, but I couldn't get the cover shot. It was missing, and those guys were really good friends with Jeff Stockwell and had also talked in his ear and so forth. So like there was no way I was going to be like, yeah, Jeff, let's go reshoot this cover so I can get this magazine out that's already at the printer and on its way back with a new name on it,
Yeah.
with my files and so forth. Who do you think paid for the film? And it's just crazy. It's really fucking nuts when you think about it.
Yeah.
It really is nuts. But yeah, and then they actually went after me for that last paycheck too. So it wasn't enough just stealing my entire life's work and just sliding everything over without having to put any of the groundwork into actually building a magazine and being completely clueless. I understand youth and naivety and so forth, and I can understand how it would be like you could convince yourself that you were justified in doing what you did. But I think that at some point somebody's going to wake up and go, fuck, fuck, I really did something horrible.
Yeah.
Like, I really had no right to do that. That was like so bad. But I mean, that day hasn't come yet, and I don't know if it ever will. But, that was a really, really shitty thing to do. After all those years in the industry, that was my send off. An industry turning its back on me and my few trusted family, employee, friends that I thought taking everything I had and leaving me with the IRS and the debt and the bills to the tune of about $168,000 and liens. I'm still coming out from under that still to this day. So,
Yeah.
you can't just like, and the subscribers, the thing that really killed me more than anything was the thing that had always kept me going with the magazine was my subscribers writing in, like you, Todd. Like, I still have, to this day, right down the street, every single letter that was ever sent into Daily Bread.
Yeah.
I have every single letter in
Wow.
boxes because the subscribers were what kept me going. It was like because they were me. This was about them.
Yeah.
So when all the industry shit was around me and so forth, it was like that would always be the like thing that kept me working late at night and whatever, was knowing what it was going to bring to another skater just like myself.
Yeah.
And so when they thought that I abandoned them, when they thought I quit, and they thought that especially when they thought that I took their subscription money and didn't give them a magazine for it, that was what I couldn't bear. Like, that was really heart-wrenching for me.
Yeah.
But I looked at it and where the industry was at the time and the situation I was in and so forth, and I literally, from that day when I came back from the courthouse and knew, once the what's that retainer? whatever it is that I had on them, when that was lifted because they returned the files, and I knew that that magazine was going to be coming back any day, and there was nothing I could do. Like there was literally nothing I could do. Um, I just walked away. I didn't cry or scream or call anybody. And I'd made that one phone call and gotten the cold shoulder, and I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
And I just literally walked away. I had to figure out who I was again and what I was going to do. And it's tough. It's like the death of your entire family. I mean, I had friends all over the world, and suddenly I felt like everyone had put a knife in my back. Everyone had abandoned me. No one gave a damn. And I just
Wow.
felt so like I just climbed in a hole. I exiled myself. And I did not talk to anyone in skating for 5 years.
Yeah.
Like 5 years. Could not do it. Could not bring myself. I'm actually almost in tears right now. It brings up all these like crazy emotions to like every time I have to go through and tell the story, or like every time I get to it, like this is actually the first time I've ever publicly said what happened.
Yeah.
I've never said it out loud to anyone. Um, I've talked to Kato. I've talked to uh, a couple of old friends. Like maybe a handful, like literally a handful, like five, and they're the only ones I've ever talked to. Um, and a guy in England named Dave McNamara, who like you should tell all of your listeners out there to check out his magazine Wheel Scene. He wanted to do an interview, and I don't know what happened. It's probably my fault, but you should definitely support him. Have you heard of his magazine?
Will's scene?
Wheel Scene.
Wheel scene. No.
Yeah. If you haven't, check it out. He's putting out a free publication. It's music, skating, lifestyle type.
Yeah.
It's really good. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah. Anyway, but yeah, where was I? So yeah, I went into exile for like 5 years, and I couldn't bring myself to talk to anyone. I couldn't bring myself to do anything, and it took the reconciliation with Kato to bring me kind of out, and with Bo. Um, Bo has just always had a really special place in my heart too, because from the time he came to me with making Daily Bread's first video, he was like so. He's always been so on the ball as far as when he has a creative vision and so forth, making it happen, but always staying so chill. I don't know how he does it. Like he's a role model to look up. I mean, the guy can stay chill in any situation.
Yeah.
He just rolls with shit, but he accomplishes so much. So it's like when he came to me, um, I think he was, if you're listening, Bo, to this, I don't remember how old you were, but you were a punk. Um, yeah, and anyone else would have thought I was nuts, but when he said he was going to make the video, he wanted to make this video, and he put together a little proposal for me and so forth, I was like, fuck yeah, like I'd be honored. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I know you'll do something amazing. And Forest Fire was. I actually, I have to say, I'm extremely happy and have always been really proud of the choices I made as far as who put together a video for Daily Bread, because between that video and Drew, those guys just rocked it. Love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had some great shit. I mean, like, no one will ever write a story like Arlo.
No.
And I mean, like I'm sitting here whining and talking about all of this that I went through and that I did and so forth. But Daily Bread was a lot of people, and it was a lot of heart, and like a lot of people that really never got anything out of what they put in. And I would say Arlo was one of those people. Like Arlo also, like he's my brother from another mother. Love you, Arlo, if you ever listen to this. Yeah, Daily Bread would never have been what it was without Arlo. That's for sure. But
Yeah.
And Jess, Daily Bread never would have been without Jess. He's the one that put the idea in my head and busted ass getting stuff from the get-go.
Yeah.
But yeah, once I got that over the hump thing with Kato, and I started like talking to more people, and I realized, gosh, like how conceited of me to think that everyone turned their back on me. It's not that they turned their, I mean, the advertisers who never called or anything, who were, like acutely aware of what was happening, yes, but I have thousands and thousands of friends out there in skating and so forth who just never had a clue what happened. And it'd be like me. If one of my friends just dropped off all of a sudden, and I've got a shitload of them, they're all over the world, I wouldn't be like necessarily knocking on their door, where are you? When I saw them again, I'd be like, where have you been?
Yeah.
So, I had to just let go a lot of that and just realize, number one, of course, the earth doesn't revolve around me and no one's keeping tabs on my life specifically. So I just needed to like be like, whatever, let it go. And also, people tend to not have much empathy in things that they haven't experienced themselves.
Yeah.
It's like if you have when you're younger and somebody loses a parent or something, you don't get the impact of it. And then when you get older and you like maybe get close to losing a parent or a close friend or something, it's not until, like a simpler example would be like getting your heart broken. You just until you feel that feeling, you just can't have empathy or sympathy for what someone else is going through.
So
And
true.
yeah, you got to really take that into. I learned that real early on because I used to just be like, "Oh my God," and it's like, think about it. When something's going on with someone else, unless you work really hard to put yourself in their shoes and try to feel what they're feeling, you can get close to maybe thinking you might understand. But until those emotions are actually going on in you or the pain is in you, you know. But anyway,
Yeah.
beyond all that, everything now is I couldn't be happier. I'm really, well, needless to say, I think we all know what magazine I was talking about, right? Just to end that. I always said there could only be one magazine, so let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But anyway, like things are great. Like Bo's putting together all these old man sessions and barbecues and stuff here.
Cool.
We're all on Facebook on the OG Bladers. There's guys like you out there with mushroom blading. To me, the industry right now, where I see it, I'm really out of the loop, but like what I see is real. It's like it's finally what I always. It's like it's all growed up. Like it's finally to the point where it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's just skating, and that is a great, great place to be. It really
Yeah.
is because right here is where everything actually gets born. So I'm going to have to say that I believe 20 years after the fact, we are kind of in year one, right around year one for rollerblading as we know it
Yeah.
and what we want from it. And it's in so many different places now in such a good way that like it's kind of weird because I see the same heads, I see the same faces and the same like top skaters. It's almost like time stood still in a weird ass way because during the 13 years, 13, 12, you have to pardon me, I have like no sense of time, but um, during all those years, there were so many different eras of who were the top skaters and the top pros.
Yeah.
And I call me crazy because that's totally apropos or whatever that word is, but it seems like time stood still from like the last issues of Daily Bread to now. Is there other big name pro skaters? Did
Uh,
everything just like stand in time? Like who were the new guys?
yeah, I think in a lot of ways that's really true. Like the people that are at the top now, they were the same as the people who were at the top when the magazine died.
Yeah, it's like
Yep.
time stood still because
Yeah.
there's nothing that's introducing a new era at any time. So it's like we were constantly turning over like, whoa, somebody amazing. And I'm sure that there's really amazing skaters out there that just, I mean, I
Yeah.
know there are that just, that's the one thing that with the explosion of the internet and the media and stuff, everything is so scattered about.
Yeah, I think that's what it is that like when Daily Bread was around, the people that you featured, it was really easy to look at them and say, okay, oh, this is the top dog, this is the all-star, this is the Chris Haffey, this is like whoever. And even at that time, the videos that would come out like had a lot more impact and they had a lot more meaning. And now it's like there's so much being produced online, there's so many edits, and people they're less celebrity
Mm-hmm.
because there's no big magazine or video production saying this is the person that you should all be watching. This is the
Yep.
best of the best.
Isn't it funny how that happens? Everybody wants to be a star, but then when everybody's a star, nobody's a star.
And nobody's a star. Yeah. But in a way, that's kind of a more intelligent way to view it because really we're all just people.
Yeah.
The idea of celebrity is slowly dying because
But then,
it's
yeah,
an unintelligent thing to say, oh, this person deserves more respect than this person. I mean,
but
we're
then
all
you
the
said
same.
it. We're all just people.
Yeah.
And you know what the human nature of people is? To segregate,
Yeah.
to categorize, to tier, to form tribes, to place value. As intelligent people, the only, if we want to start getting into mantras, the only thing that creates us, or the only thing that separates us from utopia is opposites. We're on a plane where all we understand are opposites. If it doesn't have an opposite, it does not exist to us. We
Yeah.
haven't achieved a Zen type of state where we can actually experience or see things without opposite.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
think the closest thing to that would be like the Asian and Japanese cultures, because in their language, and I find this to be totally fascinating, in their language, their language doesn't have opposites.
Hmm.
It's conceptual, from what I understand. And you can imagine that that changes their perception of the world around them, because for us, our languages are based on opposites: good, bad, light, dark. All of our words exist in opposites,
Yeah.
and theirs don't. So I think that until we get past the opposites, until we get past that primal nature of needing to create a tiered structure and only be able to like identify ourselves as to what we compare with, then that'll be good. But the utopian environment just doesn't work with the mindset that we have right now. But things are
No.
changing, and that's what's so bizarre to me right now, and why I love what I do, um, as far as being a geek and building these databases and so forth, because um, I watch how everyone jumped on MySpace. It was huge, and then it kind of got commercial, and then everyone jumped to Facebook, and then like Facebook gets commercial, and it's like everyone's having this internet social everything information orgasm.
Yeah.
And it's been going on for years now. Ever since we got this new toy, it's been just everyone's been going ape shit with it. But again, everyone's awakening to their true nature, and that's why the local scene magazines are doing well. Because people are like, too much information. I just want to know what's going on. Just give me this little isolated community magazine. It's just too much to take. So they like want the space. So it's like you've got Facebook where you've got 10 million friends and 10 million things going on, and you will find yourself starting to seek out smaller communities, smaller uh, forums, smaller places. And that's what I see happening all over the place is like it's gone from like global networking stuff to like, you know what, let's make networking on our website. So like if our website is about uh, music, let's make a music Facebook just here for these people who are interested in this, not to
Yeah.
the global everybody. Like, let's stop vomiting everything everywhere and let's just, I don't need 10 million friends. I need 10 friends that I actually relate to.
Exactly.
So I see that happening, and I'm always telling like the clients that I deal with now, I'm like, they're like a corporate company or something, even though I mostly deal with like art galleries, but like they'll be like, oh, we need to like get on Facebook or Twitter. I'm all like, no, you don't. But that's the hot new thing. That's the trending thing or whatever. And it's like, I find myself back in the same position I was in the beginning of Daily Bread where I'm like, no, dude, Why would you want to like align yourself with that? You're not a Facebook friend. You're a company. If
Yeah.
you want to build a community, build it on your website about what you do
Yeah.
and bring people into your community. You're just an oddball over there trying to make friends with people who just aren't looking to make friends with you.
Yeah.
So it's just awkward.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I actually have it on my list of things to do. It's been like a big goal of mine. Now that I'm all like super geeked out with all of this information and stuff that I do, I want to put dbmag.com up.
Do it.
Yeah, but it's on my list. I've got to get my band website up. I've got to get dbmag.com up and get all the magazine archives and so forth up there.
That'd be
And
amazing.
yeah, so any of you guys who are listening, if you're going to email me and ask me if you can put the photos up and stuff, seriously, I'm serious. I'm really going to get to it. I swear.
Wow,
I
that'd be
always, I,
amazing.
yeah, I wanted to do something, for my subscribers, and
Yeah.
this has been on my mind now for like what, since 666 to do something. And I don't know. I've got some boxes of T-shirts. I've got videos. Oh, you want to talk about a painful day? I obviously had a large number of magazines, very heavy, and could not keep them in storage anymore. Couldn't afford it, so I was able to like keep two boxes of each issue that actually had two boxes to be kept that weren't
Yeah.
sold out. And I took pictures, and I'll probably put those up on dbmag.com too. But the entire street was lined with boxes of magazines for the recycler to come pick up.
Wow.
Ouch, ouch.
That's
Yeah,
harsh.
that was really hard. But I have two boxes of each, and I wanted to put together. Obviously I can't afford to do anything grand, but I just want to put something together. And when I think of it, I will let everyone know. But like I want to put something together for my subscribers that never got those last issues. They are owed by me.
Uh,
I owe them, and I will do something, but I don't know what just yet.
that's exciting.
Figure something out.
Yeah.
But
Well, Angie, this has been amazing. I
can you
thank you.
believe it's actually midnight right now?
It's midnight. Yeah. I've
I feel like I'm just sitting here talking to you in my room, which I am. So it's kind of weird to think that a lot of people are actually going to hear this. Hi, all of you that are listening out there.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure they're gonna love it as much as
I
I
hope
did.
so.
Yeah,
Don't hold anything against me. I'm just trying to tell it like it is and say it all out there. And I'm kind of half delirious. So if I got all like
exactly.
emotional, whiny, I'm really sorry.
No, you did a great job, and I'm really honored that this was the first time that you've spoken about all this stuff publicly.
Well, it's kind of fitting, isn't it? Since you were like one of those people that like of all the people that got dicked out of all of this, you were the most undeserving. You're finally getting your first ad in. You
Yeah,
totally get dicked. You have no idea how much that haunted me, dude. Like I immediately knew you guys were like also brothers from another mother, and I was like, these guys just like, oh my God, they're so undeserving of this. This is so shitty, but look at what you've done. What
yeah.
are you doing? I want to know more about what you're doing. Like, what is going on up there? Clue me in.
Um, I'm going through like this, just a lot of inspiration. I'm just being inspired to do a lot of different things, this podcast included.
Hmm.
And skating is more fun than it's ever been.
Hmm.
And I'm starting to write a little bit.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm drawing a lot, and I'm I'm also working in the tech industry. I'm a web developer. That's what I
Are
do
you
for my
really?
career. Yeah.
Dude,
Yep.
close to brother from another mother? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's awesome to like go to work and learn a lot of stuff that I can put towards my passion, and yeah, it's
We're gonna have to
yeah.
like we're gonna have to geek out on some like conversation so I can like figure out what you do and what you work in and so forth and where we can like help each other.
Yeah, for sure.
'Cause there's a lot of that going on out there.
Totally. Yep.
Are you going to be making it out to any of the John Julio's going to do his event again this next summer, like in
Yeah.
July or something?
I usually don't. I
No?
usually stay away from those
Anything
things.
industry?
Yeah. I like to stay on the outside looking in.
Well, dude, I don't blame you at all.
Yeah.
So that's good then.
Yeah, but it was all those. I mean, like back when we used to get daily breads, there wasn't, like you said, there wasn't the internet, and we couldn't just watch new stuff, or we couldn't just look at new pictures. And so when a new issue of Daily Bread came out, it was so exciting. We'd
Mm-hmm.
go to the gas station and pick it up, and then look at it over and over and over.
It was
And that
exciting for
was
me
like
too.
the daily bread. That was like the monthly dose of inspiration
Yep, I
that we
know.
needed, right?
It's funny because like I think I get really excited too. But once that issue came out, man, I did not want to see that thing again. Because by
Yeah.
that time I'd been reading it for like days, days and days nonstop. I was like, oh my God, I can't look at another page. My eyes are gonna bleed. Yeah,
Totally
dude.
understand that.
So who do you skate with there in Canada?
I skate with my friend Joey, of course,
Yep.
Joey McGarry, who
Hmm.
makes all the wonderful videos. And I skate with Leon, who owns Shop Task. And
Mm.
he's actually doing really well. He's got a few stores now around Canada,
Hmm.
little rollerblading shops. So his thing is really taking off.
He's
And
got a few like just strictly rollerblading shops.
yeah,
Fucking
totally.
awesome, dude.
Yeah, he started with an online shop. Well, he actually started just out of his car,
Hmm.
and then he finally opened up a shop in Vancouver, and he's recently opened up a shop in Montreal and in Toronto.
That is so awesome.
Yeah,
And
so
see,
he's
everyone
doing it
else
up.
had to die for that to happen. Because
Exactly.
otherwise, he would, it's like it's got to be gone for him to be able to come in and provide something, and there'd be a supply and demand. Shop Task, that's a great name too.
Yeah,
I like
check him
that.
out at shop-task.com.
Shop Dash Task
What did I say? Shop dash. It's
Dash
late.
Task. I know, dude. Like, I'm seriously like, I don't even know what we just talked about. I'm like on another planet, delirious. I've got all those paint fumes, but yeah, and I'll actually shoot you out some tracks so you can hear our band when I
Cool.
get them in the next couple days.
Yeah, send me some
If you're
stuff.
interested,
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm interested in anything you want to send me. We'll stay in touch.
dupe in the public.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you want to go to sleep now?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to sleep. But
You want to
thank
hang?
you so
Do you want?
much.
Do you want to hang up first?
No, you.
No, you hang up. You hang up.
All right.
Okay. I could actually. I really am delirious enough to sit here and go, no, you first. No, you first. Okay. Yeah. You want to hang up?
Sure.
All
All right.
right.
Bye, Angie. Thanks again.
Bye, Todd. Thank you for the
Bye.
opportunity. Good night.
You're welcome.